be interested, let people know that our hunting numbers have gone down over the years, and we're doing everything we can to keep this hunting tradition up.
Yeah.
I think that's where major focus needs to be, and it's not going to be through the social media so much as the traditional media, because most of the existing hunters are older.
Yep.
So.
You're right.
You could tie something like that in with the adult mentor program.
Right. All right. So as a follow-up to that, Steve asked me to share with you a couple quick updates. So in response to your question about what are we going to do, how are we going to get the word out about mentoring and using our current hunters. So in the past 6 months, our agency has been enrolled in 2 key programs. So the National Hunter Mentor Program is an effort through the International Hunter Education Association. So our hunter education instructors in the state of Pennsylvania are already certified under IHEA curriculum. The National Hunter Mentor Program is an effort through Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever to create a curriculum to essentially train mentors to take new people afield. And the focus is on adults. And so our hunter education instructors focus on a very traditional younger audience, so youth, essentially. So this program addresses the fact that we need to get more adults afield and have them be taken afield by someone who's certified. So we've already had staff in our INE team trained as hunter mentor trainers, and we are already working to train teams of leaders from groups like National Wild Turkey Federation and Backcountry Hunters and Anglers and Pheasants Forever and others in the state. So they have, as part of their organization, they have the same directive we do, get more hunters activated. And so they want to say, hey, we have a team here that's trained. And essentially it's like an advanced hunter education instructor. So we have that program going on. We're going to get more people involved in terms of being trained as a hunter mentor. And then to go along with that and tie into the digital side of things, we are teamed up with a company called Powderhook, and they have an application that connects people to hunting, fishing, and shooting sports opportunities. And so they're a national company, and they have a program called Digital Mentor. So how many of you have ever participated in an online forum, or you've seen people asking questions like, hey, I just started turkey hunting, what gun should I buy? Hey, I just started pheasant hunting, where should I go? Hey, I just got into bow hunting, what's a good bow for deer hunting? So essentially this program is taking that obvious need for people to communicate within a safe platform of fellow outdoorsmen and link them together. And so we have a team of folks that are on this platform now to help answer questions in Pennsylvania. And so these are folks that might live in Pennsylvania or might be coming here to hunt as a non-resident hunter. And so those 2 things, the National Hunter Mentor Program and the Digital Mentor Program, are going to be a powerful way for us to reach a broader audience. And to answer your question about like how are we going to do it, we're going to need to get it in print. We're going to need to get the word out there to say the Pennsylvania Game Commission is committed to making sure people have opportunities to hunt, whether they're getting started as a brand new hunter or getting reactivated. And so those ways, I'm saying, we're providing you with people that are trained to actually take you afield, and also people to kind of meet with you in the digital realm and answer your questions. That's really critical. So we can be front and center as the provider of the information they need to get afield safely, and it all would be operated under the umbrella of saying these people are certified through a program through IHEA. They're already vetted by our agency. We know them, we trust them, we believe in them, and we know they're committed to mentoring the next generation of hunters. So
yeah, and I think that's all great with the mentoring program, but to some people that may be just a little bit intimidating. I mean, I think just the fact that you can ask somebody to go out hunting with you, and
Sure.
in my case, I asked a friend this year
Sure.
who had never hunted in his life. I told him, if he'd like, I'd take him up to our deer camp and everything. And I said, to make it really easy, I said, you can take an online hunter education course, which he did because he works full time.
Right.
He did that. I just took him out target shooting, and we took him up there, and he loved it so much. He saw a couple deer. He didn't get a deer, but he loved it so much he went out and bought a crossbow and was able to harvest a doe after Christmas. So think we need to make it as easy as we can. I think the mentoring thing is great, but I think for some people that, you know, I think if we just encourage everybody, just try and invite somebody, and it's so easy to get hunter education. You can do it online.
Right.
And I just think that'd be a really easy way to get more hunters out there.
Right. Yeah, and you're right. You know, making sure we're promoting the mentored adult permit is critical. You're looking at the sales report for this past season, we can see that we had only less than 250 of those mentored adult permits sold residents. So that's a program that could and should expand naturally. That, you know, like you just said, you invite that friend. They don't even have to have taken the hunter course, so they can be your mentee, and you can take them on that deer hunt, that type of thing. So that's an important message to communicate, is the mentor permits. They're used very widely for youth. We had 25,000 youth mentored permits and only 250 mentored adult permits. So there's a big span there. So any other questions? Yes.
Are other states trying to reach out to non-hunters to buy hunting licenses? And I look at that because as I grew up, everyone's, you know, we had hunters pay for conservation. It was true. I mean, and if you look at all the species that have been reintroduced, you look at what we do for non-game, threatened, endangered species, whatever. If they want to support that program, really the only way to do it is to buy a hunting license. And it would seem to me that we could pick up some people to buy hunting licenses just because of the support it does to the agency and the non-game species that they want to see.
Right.
Is that happening nationwide? Can it happen? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of states that have created programs to reach out to the non-hunting audience. We see a lot of surveys that will say, you know, in most states, 5% or less of the population are hunting license buyers. You know, it might be 10 or 20% identify as hunters, but the majority of population are non-hunters now. We acknowledge that. And many states, I'll use Kentucky as an example, are doing a campaign to reach the non-hunting audience, and they have a special fund set up for non-game species. And so Kentucky has a program called Kentucky Wild, and they have a website that's connected to their main agency website that shows all the programs they're doing, whether it be for, you know, endangered fish species or bald eagles, or, you know, something as relatively simple as mollusks in a freshwater stream. So they're saying, our agency is doing great work. We are giving you a way to directly impact that work. We're saying you can donate, and they have it set up at different levels. So it's very much like a conservation organization where you have different tiers of giving or different membership levels, essentially. And so in our state, of course, we have the Working Together for Wildlife Fund, and that's a very traditional program where people are generally purchasing products, and that goes into the fund. So whether they're buying books or patches, it's money that's coming to us to be used and directed towards non-game efforts. But we have already talked about ideas for that type of program that would make sense to market to our wildlife watching audience. So you all know wildlife watching is a huge, huge billion-dollar business in our state. You know, just look at the elk herd and elk viewing opportunities alone. But then you have things like the snow goose spectacle at Middle Creek, and then just year-round people come here from out of state to do ecotourism, to take photographs, to go birding, to go hiking, kayaking, things like that. So the whole realm of outdoor enthusiasts is large, and we need to look carefully at ways to kind of build out from our existing audience. It's very finite of hunting license buyers, and look at ways in which we can expand it. So I think that you know, the Working Together for Wildlife Fund is, since it's already set up, is a very logical place to look at that carefully and see if we could use examples. Because I just mentioned Kentucky, but I know of at least a dozen states that have major programs that are bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them million plus, for non-game specifically. And that's important, because the non-hunters want to know they're contributing, but also know that it's not going to be simply used for game species alone. And our agency, in our annual report, there's great stories in here. Our agency tells the story and shows, you know, things like ospreys and bald eagles, and our regular customers might see or know about this, but the majority, the 80+%, don't necessarily get the message and hear and see what we're doing for all 480 species of wildlife that we're in charge of protecting in the state. So that's a really critical message to be shared with the wildlife watching community. So thank you for that point.
Any others?
All right, I'm going to finish with this video. So I said we're doing some new programs. So.
Oftentimes, it's simply overlooked how good the hunting truly is in Pennsylvania. Unmatched whitetail traditions, thriving turkey populations, some of the best Canada goose hunting in the Atlantic flyway, over 200,000 pheasants stocked statewide yearly, world-class elk hunting, along with some of the largest black bear in the world, managing habitat, creating opportunities, conserving our future. The Pennsylvania Game Commission.
So that's a project that we just completed. As I said, Tyler Huck, our filmmaker, has been here just a month, and he's doing great things for us. We've got a lot of great projects in the works to promote what our agency is doing. If you recall the presentation I gave here back in the summer, it was titled Pennsylvania Hunting Powerhouse, and so that 30-second film is a follow-up to that to help our hunters and our non-hunters understand the position Pennsylvania holds nationwide. We have world-class hunting here, you know, top wildlife populations and a super avid hunting community. So that's an example of the type of films and video that we're going to be putting together in coming months to not only motivate and inspire our current audience, but also encourage new people to get involved. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to point out Crescinda, who's in the back here. She's our social media person, since I referenced her earlier. So I want to thank her very much, because the bulk of the presentation that I did today comes from her efforts. And so thank you very much for doing what you did, Crescinda and Tyler. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. And if anybody has any questions and wants to follow up, I've got information here. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Well, I wanted to thank Derek and Tyler, because while they were out there gathering that footage on that late season pheasant film, they caught me in the midst of practice that I have. I call it flush and release. And they were both ordered to immediately delete that footage, and I'm glad to see that they did. So I seem to participate in that quite frequently. Yes, conservation, thank you. Before I go on, I just wanted to note, as we talk about marketing and how we can increase our programs on participation, that's something that's been close to Brian's heart since he's been executive director. And for quite some time now, we've been trying to find the right person who could come in and take our efforts together. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to do so far, but who can really help us go on and achieve even greater things. So we've gone through a very lengthy process of trying to find the right individual. And what we wanted is somebody who has a background in this industry, somebody who can speak the language, speak credibly to our hunters, and yet has sort of that inside knowledge on how the industry works and knows what we need to do to promote our activities. And unfortunately, we just not able to find anybody like that, and we've had to settle for Matt Moret. So, of course, I'm kidding, because Matt is one of the most recognizable faces in the hunting industry. Matt, you've been at it for what, about 20 years now, is that right? And we couldn't be more excited that he's going to be joining us this spring as our marketing director to really help our efforts and move them forward. So he hasn't even started yet. We're not even paying him, but he gave up his day to be here. So I hope you get a chance to talk to Matt while you're here. Just to conclude our Bureau presentation, there's a few things I wanted to show. When I last September, I talked about how state agencies moving forward are going to have a problem due to shrinking license sales with staying relevant with the non-hunters. And Commissioner Daly, it's just about what you were talking about. How do we reach out? How do we connect with them? How do we get them to appreciate the work that the agency is doing? It's easy at a time when there's 20% of our population are hunters, or 25%. But moving forward, we know that's not going to be our future. So how do we stay relevant? How do we connect? What I'm going to show you now is the beginning of a campaign that's going to launch just this week, a social media campaign. It's going to be on Facebook, YouTube. to really target those non-hunters and let them know the work the agency does. This is just the first of many that you'll see in the future, and at some point we'll talk about what we can do with this, how we can build upon it. Is it that working together for wildlife? Is it asking them to buy a hunting license? What can we do? But we have to start somewhere, right? We have to start by making them appreciate the work the agency does. So what I'm going to show you here is a process that started sometime this summer. I've been working with Commonwealth Media Services, that's a division of the Department of General Services, on creating this content. And then we have a third-party marketing firm that is going to do the ad buys and the placements. Chances are, like I said, you'll see it probably on social media here in the near future. One thing was pretty funny, when I had the initial conversation with them, I gave the pitch of this is what I want to do. I want to show the non-hunting public what our agency does. And I was in a room with about this many people, and there was an awkward silence, and one person said, "Now you guys sell lottery tickets, right?" So I said, again, we are not the gaming commission. We're starting there. It's just letting them know what we do, and I guess it starts with getting the name right. So this is the first of a series of videos. They're very short. I went in and said, can we do 2-3 minutes? And they laughed and said, the attention span with the general public, you're not going to get them to watch a 2-3 minute video. So we have 3 15-second videos, and then it concludes with one longer 60 seconds. So I'll show them now.
Alongside bears and eagles, elk and deer, you will find the Pennsylvania Game Commission. From habitat restoration to wildlife conservation and protection, behind the beauty of the Commonwealth is the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Pennsylvania's diverse landscape is enjoyed by thousands who live in and travel through our Commonwealth, both people and wildlife. Behind the beauty is the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Our passion is wildlife, habitat conservation, and protection for our wildlife's future and the legacy we leave our children. The Pennsylvania Game Commission is more than just a place to get your hunting license. We manage the state's wild birds, wild mammals, and their habitats through habitat restoration, wildlife conservation, and protection. Behind the beauty of the Commonwealth is the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Whether it's the sound of an eagle's call or the lessons learned passing down a tradition, that's the sound of the Pennsylvania Game Commission, working for people and wildlife in the Commonwealth. We are game wardens who protect wildlife. We are biologists who research and manage the state's wild birds and mammals. We are the habitat specialists that work on our 1.5 million acres of state game lands to provide places for wildlife to thrive and people to enjoy. We are working for our wildlife's future and the legacy we leave our children. Behind the beauty of the Commonwealth is the Pennsylvania Game Commission. For more information, go to pgc.pa.gov.
And as I said, they'll be appearing on social media beginning this week. And I forgot to mention earlier, as we worked with all those entities on creating the videos, but the content itself came from our own videographer. That's all I have.
Any questions for Steve? Scott?
Thank you, Steve. I applaud your efforts again. A couple just ideas I share with you trying to get to these non-hunters. So I just looked, companies that are traditional non-hunters. I asked you about Google targeting a few months ago. I know it's expensive, but for instance, North Face has 5.5 million followers. Patagonia has 1.4 million. LL Bean has 1 million. Canada Goose, which the college campuses are loaded of, 600,000. Under Armour has 10 million. So those are outdoors people that are buying. Under Armour's a little split, but outdoor people. Can we do some ad buying or research to target those people? Everybody that walks in an REI store, we know it, or Google knows it. And before it's illegal by the federal government, let's build a database to capture these people. I know it's expensive, so I'm just putting it on your radar screen. I asked it before, but these are all people. You would even have an anti-hunter going into REI that would love that bald eagle story, that would maybe soften their stance on it.
I agree completely, and thank you for those comments. Those are the people that we want to reach. They're not buying a hunting license, probably, for the most part, but they do appreciate what we've done for wildlife, and they also appreciate what we've done as far as public lands.
Right.
The opportunities that we provide here on the East Coast are just absolutely unmatched. So they love the Game Commission. They might not know it yet, but our job is to make sure they do eventually. So thank you for
Google
those
knows who they are, so I'm just, get it in your budget, target these people, and get them on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? You breaking now? All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
I think at this time, we're going to break for lunch. Back at 1? Yeah. We'll be at 1 o'clock to continue with staff presentations. Thank you.